Liam adjusted the seal on his exosuit for the fifth time, more out of nervous habit than necessity. The soft hum of the Alari cruiser's atmospheric core vibrated beneath his boots. It was his first off-world diplomatic mission, and while he had been trained endlessly for scenarios like this, nothing in the simulations could prepare him for meeting royalty from a species that had never even breathed Earth's air. The chamber doors parted with a whisper. A wave of lavender light spilled across the smooth metallic floor. Liam stepped inside. She stood in the center of the room, surrounded by faintly glowing orbs that hovered like satellites around her. Princess Elira, tall, with silver lilac hair that cascaded down her back like a river of light, and eyes the color of deep twilight. But what struck Liam most were her ears, long and pointed, twitching almost imperceptibly as he entered, as though listening to sounds he couldn't hear. "You are the human," she said, her voice melodic but precise, almost as if sculpted syllable by syllable. "Yes, ma'am. Your Highness." He cleared his throat, annoyed by the crack in his voice. Liam Voss, Cultural Envoy, Level 3 certified in Linguistic Symmetry and Comparative Anatomy. A faint crease appeared between her brows. "Why is it necessary to announce your certifications? Is that a declaration of worth?" He hesitated. "I suppose it's more of an introduction protocol." She tilted her head. "Fascinating. Our kind no longer relies on hierarchy in spoken greetings. Your presence is sufficient. Please sit." There was no chair. As if responding to her thoughts, a section of the floor shimmered, and a curved, glass-like seat rose silently. Liam sat carefully, trying not to stare. "I've read your papers on neurological emotional variance," she said, settling into a floating platform across from him. "You suggest that human emotions are not a liability, but an adaptive trait." "I believe that, yes," Liam said, grateful she'd read his work. "Emotions allow us to bond, to protect one another. They're messy, but they give us meaning." "Meaning," she echoed, like she was tasting the word. "The Alari have long suppressed emotion in favor of clarity. We found it disruptive. Yet your species survives despite it." He caught the subtle challenge in her tone and smiled. "We don't just survive. We build art, music, families. We fall in love. And we fight like hell for those we care about." Elira leaned forward, pupils widening. "Explain love." Liam blinked. "That's the big question." She raised a delicate hand, and one of the orbs floated between them. Inside it shimmered a holographic scene. Two humans, male and female, kissing under artificial starlight. "Is this mating?" "It can be," Liam said carefully. "But love is more than biology. It's trust, vulnerability, sacrifice. Wanting someone else's happiness as much as your own." Her expression didn't change, but her ears gave the slightest flick. "We do not experience such vulnerability. It would compromise our efficiency. And yet you're curious." She didn't respond immediately. The orb dimmed, returning to its place in orbit. "Yes. Curious. That is accurate." A pause settled between them. Liam shifted in his seat, sensing an opening but unsure how far he could push it. "May I ask you something?" he ventured. "Of course." "If Alari don't experience emotion, why did you ask for a human specialist in emotional neurobiology?" Her gaze locked with his. There was no warmth in it, but something deeper, an analytical hunger, perhaps. "Because 2 weeks ago, during a crisis drill, I felt something." Liam straightened. "What kind of something?" "Panic. For my brother. He was trapped in a simulation chamber, and I thought he might perish. My advisors dismissed it as sensory feedback distortion. But I remember what it felt like, this pressure, a constriction in the chest, heat behind the eyes. I remember not thinking clearly." "You were afraid." Elira's voice dropped to a whisper. "I was afraid." Silence fell again, this time heavier. The confession lingered in the room like static. Liam chose his next words carefully. "That sounds very human." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Precisely my concern." He tried to imagine what it would be like, raised in a society that prized logic above all else, only to discover your body was rebelling with feelings. He had read reports on Alari neural mapping, highly symmetrical, functionally efficient. No unnecessary pathways. Yet here was their princess, asking about love. "Do you think it's contagious?" she asked, quieter now. "What?" "Emotion. You speak as though it spreads. Bonds, art, music. Is it a pathogen?" "No," he said, chuckling softly. "It's not an infection, but it is powerful. Maybe the most powerful force we know." She considered this. "Would you allow me to study you?" Liam blinked. "Study me how?" "Observe your behavior. Understand the biological triggers behind these feelings. I believe I can isolate the variables, perhaps even replicate them in a sterile environment." The way she said it made his skin crawl a little, like she was dissecting him with words. But there was no malice in her tone, only wonder. "I'm not sure it works like that," he said, "but I'll answer your questions. Just remember, I'm not a specimen. I'm a person." Alira tilted her head again. "Is there a difference?" Liam stood, just enough to break the spell of stillness in the room. "There is. And maybe, by the end of this mission, you'll feel it too." For the first time, her lips curved, just a little. Not quite a smile, but something in its direction. As he stepped toward the exit, her voice stopped him. "Liam." He turned. "What does it feel like?" she asked. "To love someone?" He didn't answer immediately. The question hung in the air, so raw it didn't seem to belong in a diplomatic briefing room. "It feels like gravity," he said finally. "Unseen, constant, impossible to escape. It holds you even when you try to run." She said nothing, but he could see the flicker in her expression, something unspoken shifting behind her eyes. When the door sealed behind him, Liam exhaled and whispered under his breath, "This is going to get complicated." The chamber had transformed overnight. Where there had been soft illumination and intimate stillness, now glowing diagrams and scrolling data filled the room. Holographic projectors cast intricate models of human and Alari biology midair, twin anatomies rotating side by side in eerie synchronization. The symposium had begun. Liam stood among his peers, human scientists clad in sleek biosuits, their expressions carefully neutral under the scrutiny of their hosts. On the opposite side, Alari biologists hovered on shimmering platforms, silent and unreadable. Princess Alira remained centered between them, not aligned with either group. She wore a deep violet garment that clung to her form like liquid light, her silver hair braided in a precise, ceremonial pattern. Yet her eyes never left Liam. "As you can see," one of the human doctors began, gesturing to the projection, "the endocrine systems differ significantly. Human hormonal responses rely on glands, adrenal, pituitary, reproductive, while the Alari operate through a distributed neural lattice, modulating bioelectric responses across the entire system." Which, an Alari scientist interjected, eliminates emotional bias, erratic behavior, and susceptibility to biochemical disruptions. Efficiency is maintained. Liam forced himself not to react. They were here to share knowledge, not debate philosophy. Still, the words carried an edge, a reminder that humanity's chaos was being judged through sterile eyes. Alira stepped forward. "I would like to pose a question outside the agenda." The room paused. Even the projections flickered slightly, as if unsettled. "Proceed," the Alari moderator said, tone clipped. Alira turned to Liam. "You stated previously that love is more than a biochemical phenomenon. You used the word sacrifice. I wish to understand this. Is there a biological imperative behind it?" Liam hesitated. He knew answering this question would take the conversation beyond science. But that, he realized, was precisely why she asked. "In a way," he said slowly, "yes. Evolution favored those who protected their kin, their partners. But sacrifice, real sacrifice, goes beyond survival. It's when you put someone else's well-being ahead of your own, even when there's no benefit. Sometimes even when it costs you everything." A murmur passed through the Alari delegation, subtle, but unmistakable. "That is illogical," another Alari murmured. "Inefficient. Self-destructive." Elira's gaze remained fixed on Liam, but not meaningless. "No," Liam said quietly. "Not meaningless at all." The symposium continued, but the undercurrent had shifted. Questions turned more clinical, the tone cooler. When it finally adjourned, the human delegation was escorted back to their quarters, except for Liam. Elira intercepted him just beyond the conference chamber, her expression unreadable. "Walk with me." He followed her into a quiet corridor, the walls lined with faintly pulsing lights like the rhythm of a sleeping giant. The path twisted inward, away from the public routes, until they reached a private observatory. Starlight spilled across the curved glass dome, planets hanging like frozen drops of water in the void. Elira faced the stars but spoke to him. "My advisors believe I am compromised. That exposure to human emotional frameworks has made me unstable." Liam stepped closer. "Because you asked about love?" "Because I felt fear. And curiosity. And perhaps," she stopped, shaking her head slightly, "they do not trust what they cannot quantify." "And you?" "I am no longer sure I trust their certainty." Liam exhaled slowly. "You said once that your people suppressed emotion for clarity. But maybe clarity comes from understanding what you're trying to suppress." She turned to him then, and for the first time, there was something undeniably human in her face. Not just mimicry, genuine conflict. "I want to feel what you feel," she said. "To know if it is merely chaos or something more." He didn't answer immediately. The request wasn't small. And yet, he saw in her eyes the one thing she hadn't said aloud. Fear. Not of danger, but of not knowing who she was anymore. "Then ask me anything." Her question came without hesitation. "What draws you to another? Visually, biologically, neurologically? What triggers attraction?" Liam blinked, caught off guard by the bluntness. "You want the romantic breakdown of human desire?" "I want the truth." He laughed softly. "All right. Visually? Symmetry, brightness, novelty. Pheromones play a role, but so do memories. Familiarity, voice tone, the way someone looks at you when they think you're not watching." Elira's head tilted. "You're describing a system far too complex for efficient selection." "Exactly. Love isn't about efficiency. It's about resonance. Two frequencies matching for reasons neither fully understands." Her gaze dropped to his hands, then rose again to meet his. "Do you feel that with me?" The question stunned him, not because he hadn't thought it, but because she had. Direct. Unflinching. "I feel something," he admitted. "Something I didn't expect." Elira stepped closer, until he could see the fine shimmer of her skin under the dim lights. "My physiology is incompatible with human bonding rituals. I do not produce oxytocin. I do not possess mammalian reproductive hormones. And yet, when I pulled you from that radiation breach yesterday, I felt something else." He remembered the moment, alarms blaring, heat collapsing around him, then a pulse of cold and light as her hands reached through the containment field. He hadn't understood how she'd saved him. He still didn't. "What did you feel?" he asked. She searched his face, her voice suddenly very soft. "Like I couldn't breathe until you did." A silence bloomed between them, so vast and fragile it felt like it might shatter under the weight of the next breath. Liam took a slow step forward. Then another. He reached for her hand, uncertain if she'd even respond. She didn't pull away. Outside the dome, a distant sun flared, casting pale gold across her skin. In the hall beyond, alarms began to ring. Elira's hand tightened. Her voice was calm, but her eyes flared with urgency. "Something's wrong in the medical wing." He nodded. "Let's go." They ran together, wordless now, moving as one. And in that moment, neither of them was thinking about duty or protocol or even the implications of what they might be feeling. They were only thinking of each other, and whatever was about to come next. The corridor pulsed with red light as Liam and Elira sprinted toward the medical wing, the rhythmic thrum of emergency klaxons echoing off the curved walls. Automated voice prompts in both Ilari and English overlapped in a panicked loop. "Containment breach detected." Biohazard protocols in effect. Evacuate non-essential personnel immediately. They turned the final corner into chaos. Two Alari physicians hovered near the sealed containment chamber, their serene composure cracked by clear unease. Inside the transparent field, a human technician convulsed violently, restrained to a med table. His skin had taken on a pallid blue-gray hue, blood vessels flaring like dark rivers beneath the surface. What happened? Liam demanded. The senior Alari medic didn't look at him. Unstable neural cascade. We believe contact with an experimental Alari neural interface caused an unpredictable feedback loop. His body is rejecting itself. Liam felt the air tighten in his chest. You tested cross-species technology without regulation? We followed protocol. The subject volunteered. Alira stepped forward. Open the barrier. I need access to his readings. The medic's ears flicked back in alarm. That would compromise your biointegrity, princess. You are not immune to the feedback effects. I don't need immunity, she said coldly. I need information. Liam watched her place her hand on the control panel. The barrier shimmered and then dropped, and she entered the room without hesitation. He followed. The technician, barely conscious, locked eyes with Liam. His lips moved. A whisper. She showed me things. Memories that weren't mine. Alira was already scanning the neural grid. The holographic projections rippled into existence, fractured data clusters, erratic electrical surges, symbols neither Alari nor human. This isn't just feedback, she muttered. This is shared cognition. Liam leaned over her shoulder. You mean the interface didn't malfunction? It worked too well. He wasn't just receiving Alari patterns, she said. He was feeling them, absorbing our emotional blueprints. Ones we no longer consciously use. Liam looked at her. You mean ancient instincts? Buried ones. She nodded. Ones we thought we'd evolved beyond. The technician let out a gasp, his body arching. The readings spiked into the red. Alira moved to stabilize him, fingers moving in a blur across the neural console. But the surge continued, building like a storm. Liam grabbed her wrist. If the interface is syncing to his emotions, then you can't just control it with logic. You have to connect. Her gaze flickered to his, questioning, uncertain. Feel it, he said. Let him see you. Let him know you. For a heartbeat, Alira stood frozen. Then she placed her hand gently against the technician's temple. Her pupils dilated. The neural map stabilized. Liam watched the chaos quiet into rhythm. The technician's tremors eased. Breath returned. The projection now showed a delicate lattice of images, slowly coalescing. A child running through a silver forest, a father's laugh, a first moment of wonder under Earth's sky. And, at the center, Alira. Not as royalty, but as a sister. A protector. A being who had once felt nothing and now risked everything to understand why that had changed. When she finally stepped back, the technician was asleep. Breathing stable. The Alari physicians bowed their heads. Not in protocol, but in reverence. Alira turned to Liam. Her expression had shifted again, subtly. Something in her posture was looser, less constrained. I didn't know it would feel like this. He nodded, understanding her without needing to ask. You didn't just see his memories. You shared yours. It wasn't conscious, she admitted, but it was honest. They stood in silence, the emergency lights dimming around them. Outside, the ship's systems slowly returned to equilibrium. But neither of them moved. Eventually, Alira spoke again. Do you understand now why the Alari chose isolation? Why we erased emotion? Liam considered. Because it made you vulnerable. Because it made us real. She looked away then, to the curved window at the end of the corridor, where a distant nebula flared with quiet beauty. If this connection spreads, she continued, we will change. Not just our people, yours too. Something new will emerge. And no one can predict what that will become. Liam stepped beside her. Maybe that's the point. Alira turned to him, her expression soft. And what will you do, Liam Voss, when your world asks you whether this was worth it? He smiled, tired and sure. Tell them the truth. That I met someone who taught me that biology isn't destiny, and that love is a choice. She blinked slowly, then stepped forward and placed her fingers along his jawline, a gesture neither Alari nor human. Just hers. I felt fear, she whispered. Then I felt hope. And now, I feel something else. Liam didn't speak. He didn't need to. Outside, the stars turned slowly, unaware of what had just begun within their orbit. And somewhere between instinct and intention, two species took their first step toward becoming something more.